Hey everyone, thought I'd make a quick video. I know it's been ages since I last made a video, and you probably thought I'd disappeared off the map entirely. And sorry about that. Been away, been traveling, and I just wanted to do a little short video just to talk about Parvana Pourshariati's book, The Decline and Fall of the Persian Empire, which I just finished reading. It's a fascinating book, a bit tedious in, say, the first half of it, but eventually it gets there because it goes through all the evidence, bit by bit, very painstaking. Not the easiest read, but some great material in there. And I think what really jumped out at me is Mithraism is a religion that we need to kind of pay closer attention to in terms of the relationship between Arabia and Iran and Islam and the religious beliefs of the Iranians. Obviously, Zoroastrianism is important, but I think we've underestimated how key Mithraism is in all of this. So, a key thing that I'm getting is that the god Mihr, which is the sun god, has a lot of key characteristics. Well, first of all, for the Parthians, they viewed the sun as the Qibla because that was their god, and their god was the one who sustained them, who, if a king was doing the right thing, he would be blessed. If he stuck by his contracts with the people, everything was good. But in the religion, if the king wasn't good, the king was unfaithful to the people, it was a religious duty to rebel. And so you have various stories in the Iranian traditions of various figures who rebelled because of that issue. Now, what's interesting, I find, is that in Mithraism, the idea of keeping your promises, keeping your contracts, is one of the highest religious ideals, and yet in Islam, it's the inverse of that. It's almost like a virtue to break your contract, break your promises, your bonds for the sake of Allah. So it's the inverse. And now that's very peculiar for me, because if we have two religions that are located next door to each other, is it likely that one would be unaware of the beliefs of the other? I find that unlikely, and it seems to me, and this is just a hunch, is that maybe that aspect is a reaction to the Iranian religious point of view. So it's basically anything but the Iranian point of view. So what's anything but? Well, if the Iranians think that keeping your promises is a key part of their religion, then we're going to be the opposite of that. If their Qibla is all about the direction of the sun, and the idea that the east is really important in particular, so the Qibla has to be somewhere other than east in Islam. The sun returns each day to the east, so the idea of a prophet coming from the east would be important in Mithraism. So the prophet of Islam can't come from the east; he has to come from somewhere else, and a suitable place will be from the south. So that kind of is again another inverse, another reaction to it. The other thing that came up in the book is the fact that the key years for the Arabic conquests is from 632 onwards. But she clearly says that if you look at all of the seals we have and all of the traditions, the records, and we line them up, we end up having 628 to 632 being the key 4 years. So it's all of the things line up if you push back the dates 4 years. And she also points out that there is no mention of Muhammad in the traditions. He doesn't come up in any of the narratives with all the battles, so he's totally absent. That should be no surprise to any of you if you've been following my channel. Now, I'm increasingly seeing a few people reacting. I think it's because I've been critiquing Dan Gibson, and there's a natural instinctive reaction among some people to say, well, Mel is coming up with silly ideas. I'm seeing that of quite a I don't mind so much, but I think maybe it's it may be kind of a reminder to me that I'm trying to come up with solutions, and some solutions don't work, and I have to throw them out because they don't work. And maybe I shouldn't try to find solutions. Maybe I should focus more on just pointing out that certain things don't work, such as Muhammad fitting into the narrative. I should have maybe just stuck with that instead of trying to find a solution, because the solutions are practically impossible to get because of all the anomalies. But in any case, maybe that's a lesson for me going forward, is just focus on the evidence for the fact that it doesn't work. That won't be satisfying for me personally, because just that alone, because I do want to get a solution. So I don't know how I'm going to square that one. So where does that leave us? Okay, so the book suggests that Mithraism lasted in Iran, in the north and in the east, for centuries after Islam had conquered the lands. There was very little migration of Arabs into Iran. We have thought that basically the Arabs rode into town and everyone converted to Islam, and that's how they conquered. But in the political structure, the agnatic feudal system that was in Iran, it was very hard to overturn that. And so what they did was they kicked out the Sasanians, and of course the Parthians were more than happy to take over on behalf of the Arabs. Now, there were some families, some groups among the Parthians who were not happy with playing ball with the Arabs, and one group would be the Karins, and they would have rebelled, and so some key Iranian figures would have been them who would have rebelled once in a while. And what's interesting, in a few cases, there is a guy called, if I remember, Sunbad, and I think there's 2 or 3 other similar rebels, and some of them were prophets, again very similar to with Islam, which might suggest that prophethood was a big thing at the time, nothing unique, but typically they would preach from a mountain. Does this remind you of the time when Muhammad went up a mountain, went into a cave? Kind of there's a similarity there. I think it was Sunbad, I'll have to double check, but I think it was Sunbad basically gave his followers a book as well. It was written in Persian with his teaching. So there's some similarities there, some parallels, which is interesting. The Karins wore green because green was associated with the god Mihr, because Mihr nurtured the people. If the people were good, green is the color of nurture, of of what's happened there. So there's a problem there with my video. Green is color of like grass, of greenery, of growth, harvest, all of that agricultural sense of the color green. So it's associated with your sun god, because the sun god provided food if the people are good. So that's why the Karins were green. And at some point along the line, the Muslims, particularly in Iran, took on many of the ideas of Mithraism, such as the use of the color green. If you look at the prevalence of it in paintings, with tombs, with domes, you name it, they're using Mithraic colors with Mithraic symbolism embedded in them. So at some stage over the centuries, eventually Islam converted the people, but there was a long resistance because the Mithraic religion was so deeply embedded in everything. It was connected with ethnicity, it was connected with the political system itself, the actual rule of law, the concept of justice. I think it's called the circle of justice is what they referred it to, associating it with the sun, and the idea of keeping your contract. So you had duties if you were a king, but you also had duties as subjects to that. And if you broke your contract, the sun god Mihr would basically seek revenge. So there's a lot of mythical stories about characters who go and revenge the murder of someone. Now, what's interesting is the idea of Ali and how that fits in with that, because Ali is murdered, and the Shia are all about trying to seek vengeance for that. The idea of that the Mahdi is alive and will return is actually straight out of Mithraism as well, because it's the idea that the sun returning, There's a lot of stuff that I've discovered in the book, but this is just off the top of my head, just sharing some thoughts. I will get back to business in the near future, the next few weeks. Once I get my house set up again, I'll get down to work again and try and break open a few new paths and see what we discover. Okay, so talk to you again soon. Sorry for the quality of the video. This is just off my phone. I just thought I'd get in touch with you just so that I let you know I'm still here, I'm still making videos, and see you all very soon. Bye bye.